All right. So, in part one of this video segment, I shared Gideon's story, um, events leading up to us becoming aware of his stillbirth, the hospital, the induction, and kind of leading up through his funeral. And so, in this video, I want to talk more specifically about processing the grief and how I survived 2022/2023. So, um, to be honest, while I was definitely emotional and had my um, moments processing the grief in real time, like as it was happening, like there were days where I cried and still like processing shock and all of that, there was a sense of peace for me. Spiritually, especially just trusting that God is sovereign and that, he does things for a reason or he allows things for a reason. And honestly, just feeling so thankful for where I was spiritually at that point, like due to spiritual abuse and things, religious and theological changes that had been happening in my life and our family's life, that kind of those few years right before this happened. And so all of that I felt like really prepared me to not like lose my faith during this time. And so, there wasn't a point in the beginning where I was at all felt like God was to blame. I was really able to lean on the Lord and trust him and rely on his grace and peace to like carry me through everything. And that's really like I would say those first few weeks, especially first few months, that's kind of what I held on to. There were days where I would cry, just stay in bed. Other days where, I was okay. His stillbirth happened in August of 2022. And August, as we know as moms, that's like when school starts. And we were homeschooling, but that was the first year that we decided to join a co-op, like formal co-op where we paid, into it and we had to kind of show up. And so, from the beginning, I was, I think I literally had the stillbirth, and then a week and a half later, I was at the co-op thing, which no one expected of me, but that was another part of me, like just trying to get up for the day, trying to do the things, trying to be there for the children who were living. And, they were very excited about it up until the events that had occurred. I was excited about it too. But, that entire school year was very difficult for me to show up each time because not only was it showing up and just having to move forward with life and the timing of how all that started, but also like I had to pass the hospital where I had Gideon each week. And so it was just like a constant reminder and bringing it up. So, I would Marco Polo with a few close friends and family, kind of share with them where I was at, or I would send a text. My husband and I became very close during that time, or I would say like I became very needy of my husband, and not in like the negative connotation of being needy, but just like very attached. I really needed him around way more often than I've ever needed anyone to be with me, which was weird because I was raised to be like a strong, independent woman. So that was new, but I think kind of good for our marriage because it helped bond us in a way that we hadn't been able to because I was so independent. And Um, if I was ever at home and crying and my girls saw me, they would comfort me. They would sit with me. They would rub my back. So that, my girls definitely developed, um, grew their hearts of compassion and kindness. They brought me meals in bed. They were just, so sweet and caring of me. Um, I did end up applying for a program called the Finley Project, which provides like support, holistic support for lost moms and dads too, now from what I understand. And so um, that was really helpful. They gave us money for groceries, um, gave me like 2 gift cards for massages, 2 or 3, I want to say. And they paid for someone to clean my house, which was really nice, but also very difficult to do because I felt like everything, had gotten out of control, which felt embarrassing. Um, and then just the support of, being with other women, and they do like regular events and stuff. And so I did go to a couple of those in the beginning, which were helpful, but also like, very heavy because, we're all there and we all have something in common, and that's that our babies were gone too soon. Um, so that was hard. It was encouraging but difficult to navigate. Um, but mostly I just tried to like keep going. I went back to work, a job that I absolutely loved with a team that I loved, and I definitely was passionate about, but when I returned, it just wasn't the same. It was really difficult. Um, as each week went by, it just felt like, I'm supposed to be on maternity leave right now. I should be, this is what should be happening right now. And I'm not, I'm just going, moving forward. And um, several friends on the team had announced pregnancies as well, which is really exciting, but then also like triggering. And then I felt shame about that because like I was genuinely so happy for them. Um, and, I remember like toward the end of October into November, I finally, I had a conversation with my supervisor, who was really like one of my closest friends on the team. And I, kind of shared with her where I was at. And she was like, you know what, just take the whole month of November off and then let's see how you are, see where you land, and see if it's something that you just need to step away, and that's okay, or if it's something like you just needed a little break and you're ready to come back. And so I did that. And, as heartbreaking as it was for me, because I loved my team and I loved working with her specifically, um, I just couldn't bear the idea of coming back. Um, for whatever reason, like I just couldn't mentally get there. And that was so hard for me. But she was so supportive and encouraging and reassuring. And so I stepped away from that and decided to go back to school to pursue a degree in nursing. And so I started taking like some undergraduate classes for that. So that was helpful for my grief in the sense that it gave me something productive. My hope was to pursue nursing, to become a labor and delivery nurse and support other moms if they were ever in that situation. And then it was like, well, if I'm going to be a nurse, I might as well become a nurse midwife. And then, my dreams can get ahead of me very quickly. So I did that for 2 semesters, and then there was a hiccup with my financial aid, and so that's what kind of put a drastic stop to me furthering my education. Um, and once that was out of the picture and then my work was out of the picture, those are really big distractions. Um, and once those were removed, it was just everything kind of hitting me. So we're talking August through the new year. I remember on New Year's evening, just like not being ready to move into a new year where Gideon will have never like, physically existed on the earth in a living sense. And like, I wasn't ready to do that. And just kind of crying in my in-laws' living room, and people coming over and just checking on me, giving me hugs if I needed, or letting me be alone if I needed. And that was right before I started classes. And then so I had stopped my job. In place of my job, I started the classes, and then the classes came to a halt. And that happened like right before Mother's Day, maybe a month before Mother's Day. And I had been fine up until that Mother's Day Sunday. We were walking to church, like to the worship, to the sanctuary. And I had to like stop in my tracks because I was just hit with like so much emotion at the fact that here I am on Mother's Day. I've lost my son. I'm walking with my living children, and my son is buried in the ground like 10 feet away. Like, and somehow I'm just supposed to be able to navigate this like nothing. At least that was my expectation of myself. And so after Mother's Day, that's when I really started to notice like, I'm not really okay. There was one day that I remember some of it is kind of cloudy, like my memory on it. I do remember my husband and I went on a date to Universal because we had passes, and he had gone plenty of times with our girls, but we went on a date together to that. Went on a few roller coasters. That was very triggering. I did not expect it to be triggering because I've always enjoyed roller coasters. And then at the end of the night, we went to eat at a restaurant there. And I decided to like be honest with him and let him know that I had been having some suicidal thoughts, to the point where I had like thought out trigger, I guess. Forgive me for not putting my trigger warning earlier, but I made the disclaimer in my first video, but I'm going to get into like some mental health stuff here. So I had shared with him about that, and I had shared, that it's hard to say, like, I don't know that I would say I had a plan in place, but I was at the point where my thoughts were going from like, I don't know if I want to live, to like, if I did decide to do this, this is how I would go about it. And he was very calm, cool, and collected and supportive and all of that, and appreciated that I shared that, but obviously encouraged me to reach out and get some help. So I did, and at that point, I ended up reaching out. I had already been in therapy because the Finley Project provided me that. And so I did, it was over the weekend. So I texted like the suicide hotline and talked with someone on that. And then I spoke with the therapist that I was seeing at the time, who wasn't my regular therapist. And when I shared with her, I felt like she downplayed it a little bit. And I felt like I was being very open and honest about like my thoughts and where I was at. And so I ended up requesting to see my regular therapist. Originally, I hadn't because it had something to do with insurance and what was covered, but I reached out to the organization and they were, we were able to talk a little bit more about it and what was going on. And I was able to switch to my therapist, thankfully, and kind of brought her up to speed. And so, she kind of gauged where I was at and, I was doing fine. And I feel like that was before maybe a few months before Mother's Day, or like fresh after, maybe March or April. And then Mother's Day happened and everything just hit me. And I was not doing okay. I was very depressed, unable to get out of bed. And my husband was becoming very concerned for me. And he was like, do you think you could reach out to, to see if there's any other support that they could give you? And so I put an anonymous message in a Facebook group that the Finley Project ran, and I said, just anonymously, I was like, is there such thing as like help beyond just a weekly therapy visit? Like, I think I need way more than that. And so, they kind of asked if I would reach out to them directly so they could speak more specific to me and see what they could do to help. And so, I messaged them and I was like, this is what's going on, and spoke to the director or founder of the nonprofit, and just, she and I had met. She had interacted with me in person, and I remember her saying, one of the things I remember when I met you and kind of observing you and how you were was like, oh, I think she might have some delayed grief. And she kind of explained, that delayed grief might hit me because she said that she noticed some similarities between us and how we seem to be processing stuff. And I'm assuming like in other interactions too online, and we're Facebook friends too. So anyway, I appreciated her saying that, but then I was like, what in the world is delayed grief? Like, because I remember saying to her, I was like, I feel like I'm emotionally experiencing the anger and the depression and all the things that I expected I would have felt when everything happened. And now it's all these months later, almost, not too far from being a year later. And now all of this is bubbling up. Like, I just was not anticipating that. And, but thankfully, this is what she does, and it didn't catch her by surprise. And so she was very proactive and encouraging. I did, again, share that I had been experiencing suicidal thoughts and all of that. She spoke with my husband. I gave her the okay to, get some more support. Some more support, how should I, like, to gather more support from whoever she needed to see what they could provide me with. And that's when, I was given the option to voluntarily go into an outpatient program. And so I did decide to move forward with that. Financially, it was going to be challenging for us, but it ended up, I felt like it was worth it. I did feel like I needed something beyond just therapy once a week, and this was going to be something that I had to go to every day from 8 to 3, like, and see a therapist there every week and all of that. And so June 2023, like, so we're talking August 2022 is his stillbirth. January, I start school. Somewhere between March and May, I have my first confession of like suicidal ideation. And then I think my family's here, so I may have to wrap this up. And then by May, end of May, my second disclosure, and in June, starting in an outpatient program. And so I am going to need to make this a part 3, just so I'm not interrupted, but I'll leave you there. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out and let me know. Thank you for taking the time to listen if you listened to this whole thing, and I will see you all probably next week.